Imagine this: you're standing in a field in the middle of summer. The sun is relentless. The soil beneath your boots looks cracked and pale. And somehow, there are crops growing there. Healthy ones. Not struggling, not wilting. Actually thriving. That was me, standing in a small village in Niger about 6 years ago, completely confused. These farmers had no irrigation system. No synthetic inputs. No expensive equipment. And their fields were producing food in conditions where I would have given up entirely. I had been gardening for over a decade at that point. I thought I understood the soil. Turns out, I had barely scratched the surface. What I started learning on that trip, and kept learning for years after, changed how I grew everything. These are 9 ancient farming practices that have outlasted empires, industrial agriculture, and every trend the farming world has cycled through. They work. And most of them you can start using this week. 1. Dryland farming. Ancient farmers in the Middle East figured out something that modern irrigation-heavy agriculture has mostly forgotten. You do not always need more water. Sometimes you need to use what you already have far more intelligently. Dryland farming is built on 3 pillars. Deep plowing breaks up the subsoil and creates a reservoir effect, allowing moisture to move upward through capillary action instead of evaporating from the surface. Moisture conservation techniques, like leaving crop residue on the field, act as a physical barrier against evaporation. And drought-resistant crops, selected and saved over generations, are genetically adapted to survive on less. The science here is straightforward. Deep tillage increases the soil's water-holding pore space. Residue cover can reduce surface evaporation by up to 40%. These farmers were doing precision water management without a single sensor or data dashboard. 2. Seed saving. Here is something I did wrong for years. I bought new seeds every single season. I thought being a fresher was better. What I did not understand is that seeds saved from your own garden are not just seeds. They are a living archive of adaptation. Small farmers worldwide have practiced seed saving for thousands of years. You select the strongest plants, the ones that performed best in your specific climate and soil, and you preserve their seeds for the following season. Over time, those seeds become something seed catalogs cannot replicate, they become locally tuned. Biologically, this is called landrace development. Each generation of saved seed carries a slightly better expression of traits suited to your conditions. The result is climate resilience that no commercial variety can match on your specific patch of ground. 3. Mulching with organic material. Ancient farmers covered their soil with straw, leaves, and manure long before anyone coined the term mulching. They did it because it worked visibly and immediately. The soil stayed moist longer. Weeds struggled. Plants grew stronger. Modern soil science now explains why. Organic mulch creates a buffer zone that moderates soil temperature, slows evaporative water loss, and feeds the fungal networks just beneath the surface. Those fungi connect plant roots and share nutrients across the entire bed. Remove the mulch, and you disrupt the whole system. The part that surprised me most was how quickly the microbial population shifts when you add mulch. Within weeks, you can feel the difference in the soil. It becomes looser, darker, alive in a way that bare soil simply is not. 4. Polyculture farming. Modern agriculture simplified everything into monocultures. One crop, one field, maximum efficiency. Ancient farms looked nothing like that. They grew grains, vegetables, and herbs in the same space, intermingled and interdependent. This was not disorganization. It was ecological intelligence. Different root depths meant different crops accessed different soil layers. Taller plants shaded shorter ones from harsh midday sun. Certain combinations actively repelled pests. The whole system was self-stabilizing in ways that monocultures simply are not. Ecologists call this functional biodiversity. When you grow multiple species together, the system is more resilient to disease, more attractive to beneficial insects, and more efficient with nutrients. Ancient farmers arrived at this through observation over centuries. Science caught up much later. 5. Green manure crops. Ancient Chinese farmers were plowing clover and other legumes back into their fields long before modern agronomy had a name for it. They noticed that certain plants left the soil richer for the crops that followed. They were right, and the reason is nitrogen fixation. Leguminous plants form a partnership with soil bacteria called rhizobia. The bacteria live in nodules on the plant's roots and convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form plants can use. When you plow the green crop back in, all of that fixed nitrogen becomes available to the next planting. Beyond nitrogen, green manures add organic matter, improve soil structure, and feed the microbial community through root exudates while the crop is still growing. It is one of the most efficient soil building practices available, and it costs almost nothing. 6. Stone bunds. Farmers in Burkina Faso have built stone lines across hillside slopes for generations. These low barriers slow rainwater as it moves across the landscape, giving it time to infiltrate rather than run off. The results are visible from a distance: richer, darker soil on the uphill side of each stone line, with crops that visibly outperform unprotected areas. The principle is called contour water harvesting. When rainfall is captured at the point where it falls, rather than allowed to sheet off the land, erosion drops dramatically and soil moisture increases. Burkina Faso has seen degraded land return to productive farming using this single technique. Ancient engineering. Zero inputs. Entirely replicable anywhere with a slope and stones. 7. Swidden farming. Swidden farming, commonly called slash and burn, has a terrible reputation based largely on its industrial misuse. When practiced traditionally, as it has been for centuries in parts of Thailand and Southeast Asia, it is an entirely different system. Small forest patches are cleared and farmed for a season or two. Then the land is left to rest for years while the forest regenerates. The cleared vegetation, burned in place, releases a concentrated pulse of nutrients that supports crops during the active farming phase. The long rest period allows full ecological recovery. The problem only emerges when rest periods are eliminated, which is what modern pressure on land has done. The traditional version is a rotational system in disguise, and it worked sustainably for centuries in the right context. 8. Zai pits. This is the practice I saw in Niger that stopped me cold. Farmers dig small pits across their fields in the dry season. Into each pit they place compost and organic material. When the rains come, the pits collect water and channel it directly to plant roots rather than allowing it to run off hard, crusted soil. Zai pits concentrate both water and organic matter at the planting point. The compost attracts termites, whose tunneling opens the surrounding hardpan and dramatically improves infiltration over time. What looks like a simple hand-dug hole is actually a self-improving microecosystem. Niger saw large-scale land rehabilitation using Zai pits in recent decades. Farmers reclaimed agricultural land that had been written off as permanently degraded. It worked because the underlying principles, water concentration and biological soil activity, are sound. 9. Water harvesting systems. Ancient India built elaborate systems of ponds, canals, step wells, and terraces to capture and distribute rainwater across dry regions. These were not accidental features. They were engineered responses to unreliable rainfall, designed to collect water when it came and release it slowly across the growing season. The principle is hydrological buffering. You capture precipitation at peak moments and redistribute it during deficits. Modern rainwater harvesting systems are built on the same logic, but the ancient versions worked at a community scale that integrated agriculture, drinking water, and groundwater recharge into a single designed landscape. Most modern farmers apply water at the surface and watch it evaporate. Ancient systems captured water at the landscape level and kept it in the soil. Most modern gardens are planted in monocultures because it is simpler. Ancient polycultures were more complex but also more stable, more productive per unit of land, and far less vulnerable to single failures. Most modern pest management starts with a chemical response. Traditional systems started by building the conditions where pests could not dominate in the first place. The pattern across all 12 of these practices is the same. Work with what the land provides. Observe carefully. Trust slow processes. Intervene less, design better. This week, pick one. Just one. If your soil is compacted or dry, try deep plowing a test bed and covering it with a thick layer of organic mulch. If you saved any seeds last season, set them aside properly for next year's planting. If you have a slope in your garden, lay a single stone line on contour and watch what happens when rain comes. The farmers who developed these systems were not working with more than you have. They were paying closer attention. Have you tried any of these practices in your own garden, and if so, what did you actually notice in your soil or your yields?